The City of Lloydminster is moving closer to a funding agreement with the Olive Tree for their new home base program. The home base project is dedicated to addressing homelessness in the city. Lloydminster is currently conducting a housing and needs assessment strategy before the funding agreement starts.
And get them into housing. That's the first step, and that's what they're doing today. The numbers that were provided to council is as of Friday, 16 people have been helped find secure housing in the city, and there should be 3 more completed hopefully today.
The Olive Tree is requesting $60,000 annually for each of 3 years for an outreach worker role. The city hopes after the completion of their assessment, the provincial and federal government will step up with funding.
That the city had conducted to make sure that it falls into our alignment. I hope it does, but I'm hoping that we can secure that $60,000 for the next 3 years each year through other sources. Otherwise, it will come back to taxpayers, which I will say that I believe it is good value for the money, but certainly we want to exhaust the options that are out there, working with the provincial governments and our local MLAs to bring value.
The home base program will return to council for consideration in the new year. Abby St. John joins me now to bring us the weather. And Abby, what's the latest?
Well, we saw a pretty nice day out today, and that will hopefully continue into tomorrow as well. That's what's predicted. So hopefully we get that sun, because we saw it today, even though it's the winter solstice today, so it's the shortest day of the year. But that short day was a good day. So that's all we're looking for. Very nice weather, not too cold. It's +1 right now. With that wind chill, it feels closer to -3, 17 km/h winds. So it's a little bit windy, but not as windy as what we've seen just the last couple of days even. Current temperatures across Alberta: 3 degrees in Provost, 4 in Wainwright, 2 in Vermilion and Vegreville, and out in Marwayne, 5 out in Edmonton, 1 in St. Paul, Bonnyville, Lac La Biche, and 0 out in Cold Lake. On the Saskatchewan side, -2 in Isla Crosse and Meadow Lake, +2 in Green Lake, 1 in Pierceland, 0 in St. Walburg, 4 out in Macklin, and -1 in Maidstone and in North Battleford. Overnight tonight in North Battleford, we'll drop down to -6, 13 km/h winds and partially cloudy. So it seems to be that it will be a relatively nice evening out, just a little bit of a breeze during the evening. And then tomorrow will be a daytime high of +3, partially sunny skies. So there'll be a little bit of cloud coverage, 17 km/h winds. And then overnight tonight in Cold Lake, also partially cloudy, 9 km/h winds. So it's going to be quite calm, and it will be a low of -8. And then tomorrow, a daytime high of +1. That wind speed won't change, and there will be a little bit of clouds mixing in with the sunshine throughout the day. Overnight tonight here in Lloydminster, will drop down to -4, partially cloudy skies as well, and our wind will be at around 15 km/h. And then just to break down tomorrow as the day goes on, around 6 a.m. it will be mostly clear, and it will be -4 with that wind being at 15 km/h. And then it speeds up around noon, midday to 19 km/h, -1, and the clouds will be intermittent. And then around 6 p.m. when the moon is out and the sun has set, it will be -1 still with 17 km/h winds and partially cloudy skies. So we're going to see just a little bit of cloud coverage here and there tomorrow. And then around midnight, it should be relatively clear, 19 km/h winds, and that -1 should remain. And then over the next 3 days here in the border city, on Saturday, we'll have a mix of sun and cloud as well. It will be quite windy, but we'll have a daytime high of +1 and a low of -8. And then on Sunday, it'll be mostly sunny with a high of 0 and a low of -7. That is a first look at your evening weather forecast. I'll have more overnight temperatures later on in the show.
The growing season for Saskatchewan was less than ideal once again this year, and Saskatchewan's Ministry of Agriculture had their hands full. It rolled out several programs, though, to help out both livestock and crop producers. Our Thomas Wildman has more.
Today, I am very honored to be joined by the Minister of Agriculture for Saskatchewan, the Honourable David Merritt. He's here today to talk about the whole year for the Ministry of Agriculture. And so thank you so much for being with me today, David.
Thanks for having me on, Thomas.
And so once again this year, David, it was a bit of a tougher year for agriculture producers in Saskatchewan, whether it was livestock producers not being able to have enough feed, and also crop producers and having less than a preferable growing season. So just talk to me about all the programs that you guys rolled out this year to help Saskatchewan agriculture producers as much as possible.
Obviously, we saw it, especially in the southern part and southwest part of the province, Thomas. We saw dry conditions once again. The good part was, to some degree, is we saw some spring snow that really helped the water situation. We saw some runoff that obviously filled the dugouts in a large part of the southwest and south central part of the province, where we were very concerned about water conditions as well. But as the spring went on, obviously we got into dry conditions, and in some parts of the southwest, south central, they were cutting their hay, and probably the second week of June they started cutting their hay crop, and obviously it was a short hay crop. So we started looking. Obviously, through July and August, we reached out to some ranchers and just wanted to find out just how how severe it was. And we saw we even saw those conditions. I saw them through my constituency, through Doug Steele's constituency, even right up into the west central part of the province. We saw that. So we were concerned about it, and what we're going to do to help the cattle folks, the livestock producers. So in August, we started looking at what we could do, and then in August we announced that we were going to help the livestock industry in purchasing feed. So that's what we did, and then in October the federal government came along, and with their portion. Obviously, they didn't give us the full 100% of what we were hoping they'd give us. But in total, it's just short of $150 million that's going out to the livestock producers here in the province of Saskatchewan. And that's really to protect the breeding stock. And that's really what we wanted to do. So, the ranchers, some of them are still hauling feed as we speak. So they've got till March to submit their bills. And we will compensate them up to $150 per head. If they're in the zone that the federal government has deemed, we are doing a province-wide on a provincial portion that we will pay to anybody outside of even the zone that the federal government has clarified their portion of it. So that's going to roll out, and hopefully it'll help a lot of the livestock producers in purchasing their feed. And I talked to some ranchers myself, and they're very thankful that we were able to help them out that way.
And David, let's just continue to talk about the livestock relief program that you guys had for the drought season here, that you also had a little bit of help from the federal government about, and just how much of an uptake has that program had in its first year running here in Saskatchewan?
Obviously, we've had quite a few hundreds and probably into the thousands now that have had made applications, but I've talked to some as early as just last week that are still hauling feed, and they're saying, no, we'll get it. We'll make sure we get our bills in probably, and we'll probably start to see those applications really come in January, February. That's when we'll really start to see the applications come in. Once they get all their feed home and purchased that way, then we will see the receipts, and then the checks will be going out. And I'm sure that the crop insurance folks will get the checks out just as fast this time once they receive the receipts as we did in 2021. So I know the uptake will be significant once we see January, February. And I did, once again, talking to some ranchers, and they actually thanked us for that program. They said it's a significant amount of money. We also, when we saw the devastation on the feed side, we did the same thing as we did in 2021 with the crops. We doubled the yield thresholds to allow if there was a crop that they could write off. For example, if it was spring wheat, the threshold to take it to zero was 5 bushel. We doubled it to 10. So if it's less than 10 bushel an acre, the farmer could make the choice if he wanted to sell that for feed to a rancher or if he wanted to harvest it. It was his choice. And we saw some uptake in that as well, once again. So it just gave an opportunity for ranchers to be able to source feed probably a little closer to home and give them that opportunity as well. So we saw that. A couple other things we did is we froze the lease rates for the livestock producers this year as well. Just because we saw what was spring, the way the spring was coming in, we were concerned about it. And then we also brought in a program where we allowed the ranchers, if they pulled their cattle off of the pastures early, that we would compensate them up to 50% of the amount of days that they pulled off, up to 50% of their herd. We would compensate it or reduce their rate by that amount as well. So we did what we thought we could do for the livestock producers. I hope I'm sure it's going to be programs that they really do like. And we're starting to see more uptake, especially in the forage rainfall insurance one. We're starting to see more and more producers do that. And we're looking at ways that we can do things better. How do we monitor rainfall, things like that. So we're looking at other avenues and things that we could actually make programs better. Another good significant thing that came out of even the First Minister's meeting down in New Brunswick is we saw the Maritimes have now signed on to the livestock price insurance program. So what we're really hoping for is that we can get this under a national program and see the federal government and provincial governments come in to that program as well.
Thank you so much for all the information, David, and hopefully next year will be a bit of a better growing season for Saskatchewan producers, and of course you guys will do great things continuing here at the Ministry of Agriculture for Saskatchewan.
Thank you so much, Thomas. I just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and all the best in 2024.
Now here are your agriculture prices for today. The Lloydminster Comprehensive High School Barons football team had some new scenery in 2023 when they joined the brand new Northern Saskatchewan Football League. Our Thomas Wildman spoke with Coach Kieran Link about the year.
Today I'm happy to be joined by Kieran Link, the head coach of the Lloydminster Comprehensive High School Barons, and he's here today to talk about the season as a whole. And so thank you so much for being with me today, Kieran, and of course allowing me to come to your games throughout the whole year.
Thanks for having me over.
All right, Kieran, so this is the first ever year that the Barons have been in the Northern Saskatchewan Football League. Talk to me about joining that league and what the idea was of joining that league, and then just overall the first thought of the season, your first season in this new league in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, so a lot of the coaches in Northern Saskatchewan had been playing in the Saskatoon League, and they were looking for an opportunity to get the northern rural schools together as one, and that was something that piqued our interest as well as a program. And so ourselves, two Prince Albert teams in North Battleford and a Martinsville team, just kind of a suburb of Saskatoon, we formed the North Saskatchewan Football League, and that was our first year this year. It was an up and down year. It had its challenges and it had its kind of trials and tribulations. We ended up going 1-3. We had 1 win, 3 losses. We actually beat the team from North Battleford, who actually won the football league in the end, and so that was a highlight of our season. Then we had 2 losses against Prince Albert and 1 against Martinsville in a close game. So some challenges, some room for improvement for next year, but we're excited. They were close football games by and large, and it's a good challenge for us. They're good competitions. They're well-coached teams.
And so you guys had previously been in the Wheatland Football League here in the greater Lloydminster area. And so were there any major challenges in traveling? North Battleford is only just an hour away, but then going out to PA and Martinsville, those are decently long drives for you guys here out in Lloydminster. Were those traveling challenges, did you feel those at all for the teams, or was it mostly just sometimes you guys were just a little out-horsed in terms of the other teams in this league so far?
Yeah, we had 2 long road trips to Prince Albert last year. I don't know if that will be changed for this coming year, but that's just a reality. They're a couple hours away. I don't think that was a big issue in any way, shape, or form. I think with high school football, every year there can be teams that are trending up and teams that are trending down. I thought the Prince Albert Carleton team was very good this year, and I would have picked them to win it all, but in the end, they didn't even make the league final. So it was North Battleford who won the whole ship. So I think that goes to show that it's a pretty competitive league. It's a pretty close league.
And so with this brand new league, just with all of these coaches here throughout the northern Saskatchewan area, were there anything that you guys as a coaching staff are looking forward to kind of using that you learned from some of these other teams that you're going to use now with these new kids going into this next year?
Yeah, I think some of these are well-developed programs. So I think to North Battleford, Mike Humney's president of Football Saskatchewan. He's coached U18 championship teams where they won gold medals. He's highly involved with football in the community in North Battleford, and you look to what they do well and how they're successful. They run the ball well. They're not overly fancy, but they're very physical, and those are things that us as a program would like to emulate for sure. We want to have a solid foundation where year in, year out, that we're competitive at the highest level.
And so you guys will now be well done here for the 2023 season, but into 2024, as the snow starts to melt and you get into the spring, you guys will be having the training, you will be starting up training camp, as well as some of your players may be going to the U18 championships and these Alberta All-Star teams. Just talk to me about some of those players that you're really looking forward to for next year's season, and just the club as a whole for next year's season once it comes around.
For sure. So there'll be Senior Bowl in Saskatchewan that will happen in the spring. We should have some guys that will try out for that. A few of those guys will probably try out for the Saskatoon Hilltops and try out for the Edmonton Huskies. We'll see how they do. That will be kind of determined in the spring. And then in the off season, a lot of guys are hitting the gym already. They're lifting. There'll be some kind of dry land training that they'll be doing for sure. And then we'll do a week of spring camp come closer May and June. This coming season, yeah, who are we excited about? Well, we went with a grade 10 quarterback this year, Matthew Bailey. So he had some growing pains. He hadn't played football before, but by the end of the season, he sees the starting job. So I'm excited to see his development over the next couple of years. It's a pretty key position, and I think he's capable and confident doing that. I think he'll go to some camps and make some improvements. I'm excited about our running back position. Hudson Korn kind of developed to be kind of our running back number one that we think will be able to tote the rock next year. So we're excited about that. And then on the defensive line, Julian Tepper, he's a stud. He's a big, strong guy. He's a powerful defensive end. We'll see how he develops in his grade 12 year. I think he has the ability to play at the next level. So some of those guys we're excited about, and we're excited about some guys who kind of are on the bubble right now and who will make improvements over the offseason.
Thank you so much, Kieran,
Thanks for
for
having me
all the information, and congratulations to you guys in joining the new league, and I very much look forward to next year with all those new players, as well as your second year in the North Saskatchewan Football League. And so we will definitely have more Lloydminster Comprehensive Barons football coming up for you in the next year.
Abby St. John rejoins us for another look at the weather.
Thanks so much, Leanne. We are currently sitting at -2 here in Lloydminster. It feels closer to -6 with that wind chill, as the wind, it's not super strong, definitely not as strong as what we've seen. It's only at 11 kilometers per hour, but it's still making things feel a little bit more chillier. Across Alberta, current temperatures -2 in Cold Lake, 3 in Rocky Mountain House and in Athabasca, 4 in Edmonton, 0 in Red Deer, -1 in Whitecourt and Edson, and 5 in Jasper. On the Saskatchewan side, -2 in Meadow Lake, North and North Battleford, -4 in Prince Albert, -8 in Melfort, and -1 in Saskatoon. Up north in Saskatchewan, -8 in Uranium City and down in Flin Flon, -9 in Stony Rapids, -2 in Wollaston Lake, La Loche, and Buffalo Narrows, and -3 in South End. And on the Alberta side, +3 in Fort Mac, -3 in Peace River, -4 in Fort Chipewyan, a -10 in High Level, and then -1 in Grand Prairie and in Slave Lake. And then down south in Alberta, 7 in Medicine Hat, 8 in Lethbridge, 4 in Calgary, 5 in Banff, and 1 out in Coronation. And on the Saskatchewan side, 1 in Kindersley, 2 in Swift Current, 0 in Moose Jaw, Regina, and in Yorkton, and 3 out in Estevan. Overnight tonight in North Battleford will drop down to -6. It will remain partially cloudy, 13 km/h wind, so it will be a decent night out, just a little bit chilly on the chillier side. And then overnight tonight in Cold Lake, also partially cloudy, -8 and around 9 km/h wind, so it's going to feel more like a breeze. And then more overnight temperatures across the region, -7 in Meadow Lake, -6 in Bonnyville, -3 in Provost, -5 in Isla Crosse, and -6 also out in Paradise Hill. Mostly just saying mainly clear, a little bit of cloud coverage, but not too much, and no high chances of precipitation. And then more overnight temperatures across the region, -4 in Murnum, Unity, and in Wainwright, -8 in Pierceland, and +1 out in Calgary. And again, mostly just partially cloudy skies or mainly clear evenings. And then overnight tonight here in Lloydminster, we'll drop down to -4, partially cloudy as well, 15-kilometer-per-hour winds. And then over the next 7 days here in Lloydminster, we'll have a high of +2 and a low of -3 for tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud. On Saturday to start your weekend off, it'll be partially sunny and then windy as well, with a high of +1 and a low of -8. And then on Sunday for Christmas Eve, a mix of sun and cloud, mostly sunny day with a high of 0 and a low of -7. And then on Monday, Christmas Day, mostly sunny day with a high of -1 and a low of -7. On Tuesday, it should be a bright and sunny day with a high of +1 and a low of -3. On Wednesday, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of +3 and a low of -5. And then on Thursday, to round out the next 7 days, a little bit heavier cloud coverage than what we saw today. So a little bit less sunny, but we will still see that sun in and around on Thursday with a high of +2 and a low of -7. So over the next 7 days, we're looking forward to a lot of nice sunny weather and just a tad bit of cloud coverage, but for the most part, we're going to be enjoying some sunny weather coming up. That is a look at the next 7 days. We'll have more news coming up after the break.
Today I'm happy to be joined by Jason Neville, Director of Education for the Lloyd Public School Division. Thank you so much for coming down to the station today.
Yeah, no problem.
And so we'll just jump right into it. We're here to kind of recap 2023 as the year. A lot has happened for the Lloyd Public School Division. So why don't you just talk about kind of a rundown of the year?
Sure, perfect. It would have been my first full year in this role as Director of Education and being living in Lloydminster. So there was a lot of exciting things that happened. We had, for a second year in a row, we had a group of students win a citizenship award provincially, so that was great, a group from Randall Park. Of course, our high school expansion is getting so close to being completed. That'll be something that we move into right early in the new year here in 2024. But that was a big piece throughout the year, and we had to do a lot of movement there to get to where we are today. So that's a highlight for sure. We did some pieces around truth and reconciliation. Some schools raised some Treaty 6 and Métis Nation flags. So those are always big for our division, and a celebration piece there. And then our grad rates, they continue to be strong, which just shows the great work that our staff do right from junior kindergarten and pre-kindergarten through elementary, middle school, and all the way up to high school. So that's always a celebration for us. And I guess the last piece, we started an international student program, and we had 4 students come this year to start the school year here in September with us from Australia and France. So that's a celebration for us as well.
I'd like to hear about your personal highlight of the year. If you could narrow it down to pick one or two,
Okay.
I'd like to hear that.
Okay, definitely for me it would be the performances of our students. So the athletic pieces, we had some provincial champions, those pieces, and then also our skills competition. We had a big group of students go to Edmonton for Skills Canada, right from construction to photography and different pieces there. So those are definitely highlights for me.
Can you talk about what you've seen in the year of 2023 that kind of, how does it stack up to years in the past? How are you feeling about it?
I feel really good about it. It's my first year in the role, so I don't have a lot to compare to, but it was a smooth transition. It's a fabulous school division. I've really enjoyed the city, getting into some different activities across the city just outside of work. So it's been a great transition for me, and I'm really looking forward to my second year in the role.
And then you talked about the expansion for the school coming in 2024.
Yeah.
Are there any other big ticket items for 2024 that you could talk about?
Yeah, definitely for 2024. Well, the high school expansion is big for Lloyd Public School Division. They'll be starting some classes in that area in February here, but it's also big for the city itself. I know there's already some groups that are trying to book time in our gym there, and it'll just open up a lot of gym time for other organizations outside of school hours to be able to access. So that's a big piece, just not only for the division, but for community groups. Going forward, we have some more schools that are doing some Métis and Treaty 6 flag raisings. So all the activities kind of behind the scenes that go on there, the learning that happens there, and then it's culminated with a flag raising. So we've got a few of those coming up the remainder of this school year. So that's exciting for sure. Outside of that, our academies continue to grow. We have our sport academy, our hockey academy, and then our art academy. A lot of excitement around those. And then we're also looking at doing maybe a little bit of a revamp and rebuild, I guess, of some of those academies. So that's something exciting that we're going to be able to announce in the new year as well.
Lastly, I just wanted to touch on sort of the sports side of things for the public school division. Lots going on in it, and you spoke briefly on it before, but just entering the new year and kind of with this year in review, how are we poised to enter the new year for sports?
Really well. Our basketball is underway. I know the interest there. I've talked to the coaches at the comp, and there's just a ton of interest. Most interest they've seen in a long time. So that is great that there's going to be more students participating in those extracurricular activities. And then moving into once we get the new gym expansion at the high school, it's just going to open up that many more opportunities for students. In September, we'll be bringing our grade 9s into our high school. So then that opens up some opportunities there that maybe they wouldn't have had at the middle school. So that's exciting as well. And then outside of the sports, we have our musical theater, our drama, a whole bunch of pieces around that, band, that it just seems that coming out of COVID, the interest to participate in those things has really grown.
All right, perfect. That is all the questions that I had for you today. So thank you so much for coming down to the station to talk about this.
Perfect. Thank you.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery, downtown Lloydminster.
I'm joined today by Colleen Young, MLA for Lloydminster, and thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Leanne. Glad to be here.
So it's a very busy time of year for you. You just came out from some Christmas concerts for your grandchildren.
Yes, yeah, it is a very busy time, and I remember that same time with my own kids, so now it's grandkids that I attend and watch, the excitement that goes on.
Been a very busy session as well.
Yes.
There's been a lot of momentous things happen recently with your colleagues in this area, but now you stand unopposed in your constituency for the upcoming 2024 election. I guess what do you see happening in 2024? What's the focus other than the election going to be?
Well, as you said, the election is going to be next year, the general election in October 2024. So, and yes, just recently I came through, which was you know, a race between me and Mr. Thornsteinson, and then at the very end, he chose to step out of the race, and I was acclaimed on November the 30th. So yes, I am the Sask Party candidate for the next general election, but I worked hard to get there, and so, you know, I'm very appreciative of all my constituents and those that did support me and were willing to come out, you know, but it didn't turn out that way. So there's lots of momentum happening in the province as far as the economy goes. And I think that's the big one coming into next year is, you know, without a strong economy in the province, we can't fund and provide the services that the people have come to expect. And I think that's what folks need to know and understand. The efforts and the investments and the time that the government has put into ensuring that there is growth in the province as far as the population goes, but also as far as the economy goes. And I think that's what folks need to understand. That creates jobs, it creates money into the coffers, general revenue of the province that we can support the important programs.
Great. For most people, affordability this past year has been kind of top of mind. I guess with a strong economy that does help, but are there any immediate measures or measures on the horizon that would make life a little bit more affordable for constituents?
You know, our government does recognize there are inflation pressures within the province, and at the same time we're very prudent with our finances and are making sure that we hold the line on our expenses. We need to continue to work with our industries to make sure that those investments are here in our province and contributing to the general revenue. But we also realize that there needs to be consistent paying down of our debt in this province, and that's something that we've committed to and that we have worked towards, and I'm sure people will appreciate that as we move forward, you know, so that our future generations don't have a greater burden.
Great. I know a question that a lot of people have had recently, just with the news that we've gone from having a potential surplus to being in the hole a bit. What have you been telling people about that?
Well, as we know, that has to do with our potash industry and our oil and gas industry. We've had a federal government that has, you know, imposed a carbon tax on our industries to a great extent, and that has really hurt their revenue sources. And with the global markets are frustrating them as well, and that has really brought down what we anticipated we should have had with regards to our oil and gas industry and with regards to our potash industry.
Just coming off of the big climate summit with the UN, COP28, how do you feel Saskatchewan did on that stage, making our views known on the issues?
I think it was very important for us to be there. We had 55 plus various organizations and industries participate in COP along with our government, and there were a number of MOUs signed that will support the province going forward. I think one of the things folks need to understand is that this is not about reducing production in our industries. It's about finding technologies that support the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and CO2. And I think that knowing that we have, you know, invested into our Saskatchewan Research Council and those industries in order to support the technology innovation that I believe is going to happen and support those climate.
Right, and they did signal at COP28 that they want to transition away from fossil fuels. I know that's an unpopular position in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Any thing that you can see going forward, I guess, on that front in getting your message across to the federal government at least?
Well, as you know, we were the first ones to step out and put the Saskatchewan First Act in place, and that was our signaling to the federal government that it is our role as a province to manage our natural resources in this province, and that we will determine, you know, what that looks like in the future, what production happens, and what investments happen in this province. And I think, you know, we stand firm on that. And I know Alberta has followed with their Sovereignty Act, and I think they too understand that the federal government needs to stay out of that area of the province's decisions.
All right, Colleen, are there any initiatives that you've been part of with your role in the past year that you're particularly proud of?
Well, I think starting, the Highway 21 got done a couple of years ago, and I know I'm still, receiving feedback on it, how appreciative my constituents are on getting Highway 21 as well as 797 restructured and rebuilt. I think that the two new high schools, additions to the two new high schools, has been extremely positive, and I know that it'll serve our students moving into the future. The Lloydminster Comprehensive High School still got some work to do, but I understand students have moved in at Holy Rosary into their new areas. So, that was $35 million into both of those, for each of those schools, 10 and 25. There has been work out in the rural areas as well. I was able to help secure ambulance services for Pierceland. They were struggling, and after AHS made some decisions with regards to no longer serving the area, that was something that I was able to work with the minister on and make sure that there were services for those folks up in the northwest part of this constituency. Recently, announcement at Lakeland College with regards to 16 new nursing and nurse practitioner spots. That's something I've been working on with the college and the university and the Minister of Advanced Ed for the last few years, ensuring that we are able to train and have nurses working right here in our community who want to stay in our community, who possibly have families, and that's something that I worked very hard on to making sure moved forward. Working still on a long-term care facility. Jubilee Home has reached the end of its life, and it's the only Saskatchewan long-term care facility that we have in the province, and I've heard more and more frustration from families whose aging family members have had to be transitioned or moved somewhere else within the province, and it's supposed to be temporary, but we know what temporary means. It's not always temporary, and they end up being there. And it's a struggle, not just for them being away from the family, but for family to be able to go see them. So I've been working on a long-term care facility joint with a hospice potentially in this city, and I continue to put the pressure on for that one because I think it's something that SHA has now realized is important for this community and is advocating as well. So
yeah, for sure. Colleen, is there anything that you would like to share with your constituents going into the holidays here?
Well, I think I want to thank them for their ongoing trust and confidence in me to represent them. I think that's very humbling to me to know that they believe that I am advocating on their behalf and representing them within the government, and I am working hard on their behalf. There isn't an issue that hasn't come before me that I haven't taken forward and made sure that they're heard. There's 61 MLAs, and people have to understand that I'm not the only one at the table asking for something, so we don't always get what we want, and sometimes it takes time to get there. So, I know patience is hard for some folks, but I want to assure them that I am constantly bringing issues forward and speaking on their behalf. So, and I've had the opportunity within the Assembly, Legislative Assembly, to speak on their behalf as well on many things, and announced many of the things that have happened in this community within the Assembly as well. So.
Great. Okay, well, Colleen, thank you so much for your time today. I do appreciate you coming in and speaking with us. It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you and all the staff here, and Merry Christmas to my entire constituents.
Thanks. If you've ever wondered if reindeer really know how to fly, this next story might just provide at least a partial answer. Park officials in Utah have been using helicopters to relocate about 2,400 deer for their annual health checks. Once their health is measured, the deer are then released back into the wild. The airlift is part of a program aimed at helping native mule deer cope with a number of threats, including encroaching urbanization, predators, and disease.
I don't know. I think this is the most ridiculous thing I've seen. in quite a while, actually. They just look, and that's just so funny. I don't even know what to say to that.
You have to feel a little bit sorry for them. They look kind of silly.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah. Well, that's all we have for you tonight. I am off for holidays after this. I'll see you when I'm back, and thanks for joining us.